Today marks Holocaust Memorial Day. It is the day on which we commemorate the murder of 6 million during the Holocaust, a number that staggers the mind, and certainly, I'd say the greatest specific crime of the 20th century. I mean, there were mass crimes against humanity, including Stalin killing 20 million of his own people and Mao killing 40 million of his own people. But in terms of targeting one group of people for extermination, this takes the cake, and obviously probably the greatest, quote-unquote, moral crime of the 20th century, the specific targeting and murder of Jews. Well, right as we're doing that, John Kerry decides that it is time to warn Israel. Warn Israel. Speaking at a Friday meeting of the Trilateral Commission, Secretary of State John Kerry told influential world leaders that Israel risks becoming, quote, an apartheid state, suggesting that Israel is a racist state like South Africa unless Israel makes concessions to the Palestinians. Now, last week we had on the Israeli Consul General who told us about this deal, this new deal between the Palestinian Authority, a terrorist group that we like to pretend is not a terrorist group, and Hamas, an open terrorist group that everyone acknowledges is a terrorist group. Both groups now acknowledge they want to destroy the state of Israel openly, because that's Hamas's stated goal. Mahmoud Abbas has said that he will not accept the presence or existence of a Jewish state. Secretary of State John Kerry putting the onus on the Jews, because he's an anti-Semite, and because this administration is anti-Semitic. The reason I say that is because if you blame a group of people for the hatred of their enemies, not based on anything that they've done, in fact, based on things they haven't done, all you can say is that those people are the people who are making that absurd argument must hate that group. It's an irrational hatred of Jews. Okay, what John Kerry is evidencing here is an irrational hatred of Jews, and that's what this administration evidences each and every day. How else to explain a dramatic hatred and desire for the destruction of the state of Israel? How else do you explain Kerry's comments? Kerry said on Friday that the Palestinians would certainly resort to additional violence if Israel did not pay them off with further concessions. And he said that a change in Israeli leadership would make peace more possible. In other words, it's the fault of the Israelis. If only the Israelis were more conciliatory, peace would be possible. He bashed Israel for building settlements. And then he added that he could propose his own deal and tell the sides to take it or leave it. Senator Ted Cruz, doing exactly what is right, called for Secretary of State John Kerry to step down, as well he should. John Kerry is a gross and disgusting, I mean really, a quite disgusting representation of an administration that despises the Jewish people and the Jewish state. It's not enough to say that there are Jews in the administration. So what? The question is, why are Jews held to a different standard? Palestinians want to bomb things and murder babies. Okay, the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, they want to bomb things and murder babies. They don't want to develop their own places. They want to leave Gaza the pile of sewage that it is. They receive hundreds of millions of dollars in aid every single year from the United States. It goes towards the lining of the pockets of the rich over there and toward the forwarding of terrorism. And John Kerry blames the Jews. And Barack Obama has blamed the Jews. This is not coming just from John Kerry. This is coming from the Obama administration. President Obama himself has suggested that Israel is in danger of international boycott and that America can't protect it should, in fact, Israel not make concessions to the Palestinians. Why is it that the United States can't enforce sanctions on Russia, but somehow the United States can place economic pressure on Israel with the help of the Europeans? Vladimir Putin invades a neighboring country, and he receives less scorn from the Obama administration than the Jewish state struggling to survive in the face of enemies like Iran. Cruz has said that John Kerry should resign over these comments. Eric Cantor has called for an apology, which is too weak. Kerry should go. But the reality is that I don't want Kerry to go. I want Kerry to stay. I want John Kerry to stay. The reason I want John Kerry to stay is because it doesn't matter with whom President Obama replaces John Kerry. This is a reflection of what the Obama administration thinks about things. And let me tell you, as a Jew, how it feels to have an administration that wishes to destroy brothers and sisters across the sea. I consider Americans my brothers and sisters, and I consider Jews my brothers and sisters because I'm a Jew. A proud Jew. And when I watch this administration work day in and day out to embolden the enemies of brothers and sisters, members of my family, members of my wife's direct family, over in Israel, it sickens me to my core. Today, Cruz went to the floor of the Senate and said that Kerry should immediately offer his resignation to President Obama. He said Kerry should offer President Obama his resignation. The president should accept it. He said there is no place for this word in the context of the state of Israel. The term apartheid means apart, difference, isolated, the state of the victims of apartheid with which the Jews are tragically all too familiar. He said that Israel has nothing in common with apartheid South Africa, which is true. The level of discrimination against blacks in South Africa is nothing like the variety of human rights enjoyed by Arabs inside Israel. And as for the Palestinians, 95% of Palestinians are currently living under fully autonomous Palestinian rule and enjoying the horror of that rule each and every day. Polls show that a majority of Palestinians, when asked, would prefer to live inside Israel as opposed to underneath Palestinian rule. So where does the pressure go? On Israel? No. On the Palestinians? No, it doesn't go on the Palestinians. It goes on Israel. Of course. Of course. The American-Israel Public Affairs Committee, which has proved itself to be rather gutless, they actually came out and condemned Kerry. They referred to his comments as, quote, inappropriate and disturbing. Yeah, you think? And the timing couldn't be better. I mean, to do it really on Holocaust Memorial Day, that weekend. And this month, Israel is set to celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut, which is the Israeli Independence Day. It's worthwhile to recognize exactly what sort of mindset leads to this sort of thinking by John Kerry and company. I'm not sure that John Kerry and Barack Obama and the rest of these... So I think Barack Obama actually more than Kerry, but I think that John Kerry and Barack Obama, I don't know that they consider themselves anti-Semites. I certainly know they're comfortable with anti-Semitism. That certainly is true. And if you're comfortable with anti-Semitism, good shot, you're an anti-Semite. And I judge anti-Semitism more in terms of action than I do in terms of intent. John Kerry's action has proved him to be what he is, an anti-Semite. And the same thing is true of Barack Obama. You don't sit in Jeremiah Wright's church for 20 years and hear him spouting out about how Jews are the scum of the earth and not imbibe any of that. Nonetheless, leaving aside intent, leaving aside their thoughts, leaving aside their feelings, I don't really care what John Kerry feels. What I care about is him utilizing pressure to push Israel to surrender to terrorist enemies who would murder every Jew in that region. And make no mistake, what Israel is facing in that region are the new Nazis. They are the new Nazis. In their countries right now, there are no Jews. Okay, the Jewish population in Iran are second-class citizens. The only reason that they stay is because the Iranian government confiscates their property if they leave. But there are no Jews in Jordan, there are no Jews in Egypt, there are no Jews in Syria, there are no Jews in Saudi Arabia, there are no Jews in the Palestinian areas. You want to know what's an apartheid state? The Palestinian territories. The territories currently occupied by the Palestinians. Those are apartheid territories. Why? Because Jews are not even allowed to live there. If you're a Jew and you go to live there, you will be killed. You will be murdered. That's apartheid territory, but does Obama speak up about that? No. Does Kerry speak up about that? No. Now, why not? Why not? What is the mindset that leads to this? Is it pure Jew hatred? No. It's not, I don't think it's pure Jew hatred. I don't think Barack Obama and John Kerry sit around at night twiddling their thumbs and thinking about how much they hate the Jews. I think that for both Kerry and for Barack Obama, they see Israel as a colonialist outpost in the Middle East. It's anti-Semitism that springs from anti-Westernism. See, there are two types of anti-Semitism in the world today. There's the sort of anti-Semitism that comes from the Arab world, the Muslim world more specifically, The kind of anti-Semitism that suggests that Jews are the sons of pigs and monkeys. The kind of anti-Semitism that suggests that Jews are personally inferior beings. Nazi-style anti-Semitism. That's what's coming from the Arab lands, the Muslim lands. And then there's the kind of anti-Semitism that comes from the modern internationalist left. And that anti-Semitism springs from the idea that Israel was set up in the aftermath of the Holocaust, basically as a sop to these whiny Jews. And then these whiny Jews go over there, and they mistreat everybody because they're Western. And they're foreigners. They're foreigners implanted on the soil of others. In other words, Barack Obama and John Kerry don't hate Israel just because they hate Israel. They don't hate Israel just because they hate Israel. They actually dislike Israel because they don't like the United States. They don't like Western civilization. They actually see Western civilization as a net bad. They see it as oppressive and cruel. The same Barack Obama who condemns Israel in its conflict with the Palestinians is the same Barack Obama who suggested that Donald Sterling's racist comments are endemic in the United States. It's the same Barack Obama who suggests on a routine basis that the United States is a bad place, that it's filled with evil folks. It's a perverse logic to fail to see real evil as it stands before you, to be unable to recognize evil versus good in a conflict like this. That stems from a moral relativism that in the end stems from a certain personal level of guilt about being a member of Western civilization, and a level of self-esteem that's unjustified. A level of egotistic belief that you're better than the people around you. See, John Kerry and Barack Obama, they're too good for Western civilization. They're too special for Western civilization. They're a people apart. They're world citizens. See, they're not hemmed in by the colloquial views of their upbringing. They're not hemmed in by the small-mindedness of the place in which they grew up. They're world citizens who can put their values aside, and in fact demand that their values be put aside, and in fact call their own values evil. So, here are the two types of anti-Semitism that we're seeing in the world right now. The anti-Semitism of the Muslim world, that suggests that Jews are inherently evil, and the anti-Semitism of the left, which is springing from a place, and the extreme right, which springs from a place that suggests that the Jews are wrong because Judeo-Christian values are wrong. And Judeo-Christian values are nasty and pernicious and do a whole heck of a lot of bad. That's why John Kerry is calling Israel an apartheid state. He knows that Israel is not an apartheid state. He knows that Israel is not in danger of becoming an apartheid state. John Kerry knows that the Palestinians are violent and nasty. John Kerry knows that if every Jew in the region put down their gun tomorrow, every Jew in the region would be slaughtered. And he knows that if every Palestinian in the region put down their gun tomorrow, there would be two states tomorrow. He's not stupid. He knows that. He just doesn't care. Because peace is not his end goal. John Kerry believes that true peace lies in overthrowing the Judeo-Christian order. It lies in overthrowing the Western civilization that has promulgated so much evil upon the world. And if that doesn't sicken you, this is how Holocausts happen. Holocausts happen when you have two groups of folks. One that believes that one group of people is inherently inferior and evil and worthy of destruction, and another group of folks so ashamed of their own values that they allow that first group of folks to be targeted. The Holocaust does not happen without the West sitting by and watching Adolf Hitler do it. And the modern Holocaust, the development of the Iranian nuclear weapon, the Palestinian desire to push the Jews into the sea, to slit the throat of babies. That does not happen without a West that is willing to go right along with it. And that's more of a commentary on John Kerry and company than it is on the Muslim world that believes all of this about Israel. It's more of a slur on John Kerry because you expect better from the West. From people who have had the benefit of living in the West. You expect better. You expect something decent to come out of that. And it's sickening and disheartening when you get precisely the reverse. Now, again, I don't want John Kerry to resign today. I want John Kerry to stick around. I think John Kerry is a wonderful spokesperson for the views of the Obama administration. I would like to see John Kerry stick around and continue to espouse these views loudly and proudly, instead of hiding behind the rhetoric that he is supposedly pro-Israel. I'd like to see him stick around. And he will. I don't think he's going anywhere. And by the way, I'd like to see all of the members of the Jewish community, like the folks at the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. I'd like to see where they stand on this. Are they going to allow John Kerry to speak at the next AIPAC? They've allowed him to speak at the last few. Are they going to allow Barack Obama to speak at the next AIPAC? They've allowed him to do it so far. Now is the time to stand up on your hind legs and be a man. Now is the time to stand up and be a mensch. Be a human being. Stand up against people who have no moral vision and whose substitute for moral vision is a disdain for good people's right to defend themselves against evil. John Kerry. It's no wonder the same dude throwing medals, his medals from the Vietnam War, over the White House fence for his own self-aggrandizement is willing to throw Jews over the security fence for his own self-aggrandizement. Now, when we come back here on the Ben Shapiro Show, the minimum wage in Congress, it looks like it's going to be rejected, but is it gaining ground in Seattle? Ben Shapiro Show, AM 770, KTTH, KTTH.com.